Hi friends, this is Gautam, Dr. Gautam Shah, President of Indian Psychiatric Society. Today I want to talk on stigma, prejudice and discrimination against people with mental illness. You know, as professionals in mental health, we have the responsibility to ensure that our patients get the best possible treatment. Unfortunately, what comes as a big road blockage in the journey of the recovery is not always the availability of the treatment, but the avoidance and the delay in seeking the treatment. And why? Why is this happened? Research has shown that more than half of the people with mental illness do not receive help for their disorders. Often people avoid or delay seeking treatment due to concern about being treated differently or fears of losing the jobs and livelihood. This is because the stigma, prejudice, and the discrimination against the people with mental illness is still very much is a problem. The stigma of mental illness is universal. A 2016 study on stigma concluded there is no country, society, or culture where the people with mental illness have the same societal value as people without mental illness. Stigma not only directly affects the individual with mental illness but also the loved ones who support them, often including their family members. So now I want to talk to what is stigma. Stigma is when someone views you in a negative way because you have a distinguishing characteristics or personal traits that's thought to be or actually is a disadvantage, a negative stereotype. Unfortunately, negative attitude and the beliefs towards the people who have mental illness or mental conditions are very much common. Stigma happens when a person defines someone by their illness rather than who they are as the individual. For example, they might be labeled as a psychotic rather than a person with psychotic illness or psychosis. Stigma can lead to a discrimination, and this discrimination is when someone treats you in a negative way because of your mental illness. Stigma can lead to discrimination. And this discrimination may be obvious and direct, such as someone making a negative remark about the mental illness or your treatment. It may be unintentional or subtle, such as someone avoiding you because the person assumes that you could be unstable, violent, or dangerous due to your mental illness. Now, what are the types of stigma? From the experience viewpoint, stigma can be subdivided into number one, perceived stigma. What is considered to be the most people's view of those with the stigmatizing condition. Endorsed stigma. When the people agree with the stigma, prejudice, and discrimination. Maybe the anticipated stigma, how the patient expects rejection, which may of course change their behavior, as for example, to hostility, leading to a self-fulfilling prophecy. And next is received stigma, when the patient experiences discrimination and rejected or devalued. Last, enacted stigma, another term refers to the actual discrimination in practice. What are the harmful effects of stigma and discrimination? Stigma and discrimination can contribute to worsening of the stigma and reduced likelihood and getting treatment. A recent extensive review of research found that self-stigma leads to negative effects on recovery among the people diagnosed with severe mental illness. And these effects can include reluctance to seek help or the treatment, less likely to stay the treatment, social isolation, lack of understanding by the family, friends, co-workers or the others, fewer opportunities for work, school or social activities, or trouble finding housing, maybe the bullying, physical violence or harassment, health insurance that does not adequately cover your mental illness treatment, though the recent Mental Health Care Act bill included the health insurance, and the self-doubt, the belief that you will never succeed at certain challenges or that you cannot improve your some of the effects of stigma, which includes again the challenging stigma associated with mental illness. What is the role as a professional? What are the role of ourselves? Everyone has a role to play in creating mentally healthy community. One that is inclusive, rejects discrimination, and supports the recovery. And ways to help include learning the fact about the mental illness and sharing them with the family, friends, colleagues, classmates, maybe in the media, you can share your learning. Getting to know the people with the personal experience of the mental illness, so you learn to see them for the person they are rather than their illness. Not judging or label or discriminate when you meet a people with mental illness. Treat all the people with respect and the dignity. Saying something when you hear people around you making stereotypical or inaccurate comments about the mental illness, you should always protest. And sharing your own experience of the mental illness if you have experienced it. This will help dispel myths and encourage others to do the same. Mental illness is not something shameful or not needs to be hidden. So what are the steps to cope with the stigma for patients and the families? There are some steps I can mention. Number one is you should get treatment. You may be reluctant to admit you need treatment, but don't let the fear of being labeled with a mental illness prevent you from seeking help. Don't let the stigma create self-doubt or shame. Seeking counseling, educating yourself about your condition, connecting with others who have mental illness can help you gain self-esteem and overcome the destructive self-judgment. Don't isolate yourself. Reach out to the people you trust for the compassion, support, and understanding you need. Don't equate yourself with your illness. You are not an illness. You are a person. So instead of saying, I am bipolar, you must say, I have bipolar disorder. Instead of calling yourself a schizophrenic, you say, I have schizophrenia. Or I am suffering from schizophrenia. Join a support group. This is also very important. Some local or national groups offer the local programs, internet resources, and helps to reduce this stigma by educating the patient who have mental illness, their families, and the general public. Get help at school. If you or your child has a mental illness that affects learning, find out what plans and programs might help. Discrimination against students because of a mental illness is against the law. The educator at primary, secondary, and the college levels are required to accommodate students as best as they can. Speak out against stigma. Consider expressing your opinions at the events, in letters to the editor or the internet. It can help instill courage in others facing similar challenges, and educate the public about the mental illness. In conclusion, I must say, others' judgment almost always stem from the lack of understanding rather than information based on facts. Learning to accept your condition and recognize what you need to do to treat it. Seeking support, helping educate others can make a big difference. Stigma, because only together we can have bridged. Thank you. Thank you so much for patient hearing.